Buyers take the weekend off. Oklahoma is okay with me. And I decide to pull out the B-roll on today's Unnamed Real Estate Podcast. So, I'm recording from home today because I got some housework going on, and I got some people showing up in a little while. Might knock on the door in the middle of the recording. But a couple things are coming on this week. This is episode 23. My name is Charles Dawson. I'm an associate broker with ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast. So, three things we're going to cover. On the numbers, we're going to address the fact that it looked like buyers decided to take the weekend off. Contracts were lower than the week before in all three categories, although we did have properties still coming on, not at the rate before, and that's pretty much the effect you get on a 3-day weekend. We're also impacted because this 3-day weekend comes so close to the beginning of the month, which means we still got that little slack area coming in on that first week. So we'll go into the details on that at the end of this video. Oklahoma pulls out the big guns, and I'm very happy to see that. This falls into the category of news that comes in on the day I decide to record, and everything I decided to record goes right out the window, and we decide to lead with this. Because on May the 3rd of 2021, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt signed the Predatory Real Estate Wholesaler Prohibition Act. All right, now a couple months ago, I started the camera and started talking and created the first proto weasel of the week, and was discussing wholesalers. I recorded it, listened to it, went, wow, that's pretty far out there for me. I posted it to a couple friends to solicit their feedback and everything, and the number one feedback I got was quit swearing. It's because I do drop some F-bombs on that one. So I pulled it, did not release it to the general public, and went through and edited out the swearing, but I didn't edit any of the content. And been just sort of keeping it in my back pocket in case I ever needed some filler to fill in a week or something, or maybe edit it more and turn it into a weasel of the week. And then Oklahoma drops this article, or at least the news drops this article about Oklahoma, talking about predatory wholesalers. And, you know, as I cover in the video, which I'm going to attach to this, and we're going to follow up with this, a wholesaler is somebody who purchases your property, gets it under contract with the intent to sell the contract, but not the property, to a third party. So they are coming straight out and planning on making money on this and not actually have to take title to themselves. Oklahoma the governor decided to have a commission to research how wholesaling was affecting Oklahoma citizens. And they discovered that there were issues with predatory contracts. That's a contract that's definitely taking advantage of the consumer, misleading sales practices and tactics, and clouding the title to properties. Because sometimes you get this, when you got a contract on your house, even if that contract is not fulfilled, if it's not specifically canceled out, you have what's called a cloud on the title. This can make it an issue for you later on. I hope that fan wasn't affecting the sound too much. This will make an issue later on when you actually do try to sell your property to a real person. So Oklahoma's response to all of this was they've created a licensing law that says if you're going to be a wholesaler in the state of Oklahoma, you're going to be what's called marketing an equitable interest in a contract for real property. You're going to have to be a licensed real estate agent. You're not going to need to be a member of the Board of Realtors, but you are going to have a sales license in the state of Oklahoma. So the reason for this is that they wanted to come up with more accountability and protection for the public from these predatory wholesalers. I'm a big fan of this. This makes me a happy camper. They decided that requiring the licensure of these wholesalers will create a minimum level of competency. Practitioners will have to pass a felony background check, all right, and achieve a minimum level of education with response to real estate transactions. And then for Oklahoma's laws to protect these consumers. So this is going into effect on November 1st. So if you are for some reason listening to me out of Oklahoma and you're getting these calls daily, know that they're going to start disappearing. These people are not going to be able to have that much of an impact on you. So the rest of everything that I want to talk about wholesalers really is in the upcoming video. So I'm going to follow up. We're going to go straight into that video. It was recorded a couple months ago, and with the edits, with the bad words bleeped out for the hearing sensitive, and then we'll follow up a little bit on the end. Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you about a species of real estate investor. Very specific. They're called wholesalers. And they are an entity that exists, especially here in Maricopa. They are real estate investors. They just have a certain method model that they go through. Full disclosure right now, this is going to be very much an editorial, and I am going to have facts in here. But you're also going to hear my personal opinion on this, right? Because wholesalers are the Antichrist. Not all of them. Most of them. Their business model itself is pretty cruddy. I know a couple wholesalers. I think I even got one who's actually liked my channel. And if she sees this, I truly apologize. But I did try to talk you out of this. All right. But what a wholesaler does is the person that puts a sign up. That's usually we call them bandit signs. They're on the little wire frame. You see them on the side of the road, usually when you're sitting there trying to turn off or something like that. And it usually says, "We buy ugly houses for cash," or "cash offer for all houses," whatever it is. And they are willing to buy your house for cash. I'll buy your house for cash. I'll buy your house for cash, whatever house you're living in right now this second. All right. As long as I get to pick one or two things. All right. You let me pick the price, or you let me pick the day I'm actually going to close on it. And if you let me pick both, well, I will definitely buy your house. And you're not going to be selling your house for full price. All right. And that's pretty much how wholesalers work. It's they're going to come in and they're going to offer to buy your house. It could be distressed. You're looking at a foreclosure coming on. You're behind on payments. It could be a family member's house and they just passed away or just moved out and you're the executor of the estate and you need to get rid of the house. Either way, they're going to come in and make you an offer. The offer is not going to be the market offer. The offer is going to be substantially less than market. And that's how they're going to wind up making their money. Because they're not actually, at the end of the day, going to be owning the house that they buy from you. Because what they're going to do is they're going to get your house under contract. And they're going to agree to pay you on a set date a set amount of money. That amount that they're going to be buying your house for is going to be less than they can sell it on the open market. And they will go, once they have your house under contract, call up their list of investors. And they all should have multiple investors, flippers down the road. And they're going to turn around and take your contract. Let's say I get you to sign a contract with me that says in 15 days, I'm going to buy this house for $200,000. And I know in the back of my head your house is worth $275,000. If you ever see the sign on the side of the road that says, I just saw one today, I should have took a picture of it, Peoria 32, 225, value $375. That's exactly what that person has done. All right, that person has gotten that house at $225 under contract and is trying to sell it for $375 because they did the work to figure out what an actual market rate is, and they realized it's $375. So they're looking for the person who's going to come in and says, I'd love to buy a house that's worth $375 and put some work into it. So you got it at $225. How about if I pay you $235? $245, something around in there. A lot of wholesalers, they're not swinging for the fences. They're not looking for the home run. They just want to get your house under contract and then turn around and sell that contract to somebody else. The technical term is assign it. So if you ever see a contract that says John Smith and or assignees, that's a dead giveaway that you're dealing with a wholesaler. And then they're going to turn around and sell it to one of their investors for a little bit more. They're basically just bird dogging the deal. And they don't need to come up with their own money. If you ever see those seminars of buy houses, invest in real estate with other people's money, this is the product and the project that I'm talking to you about. They're going to come in, get your house under contract for less than the market rate, and they're going to sell it for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 more to somebody else who actually knows what the value of it is. And you get your check. They do this really cool thing at escrow where they can do a split closing, where the end buyer, let's say the investor, is going to put the money in escrow. The wholesaler is going to be in there. The seller comes in, right? And escrow just takes the money from the investor, washes it. I shouldn't use the term wash. Moves it through escrow, makes sure everybody gets paid out, and the original homeowner walks away thinking they did okay. And this is, every time I see those signs, my soul dies a little bit inside, because I know that's what these people are. I honestly believe wholesalers out there are the Sith Lords compared to the Jedi of the real estate agents. All right. So I say that to say this. All right. I have offered to train people who wanted to be wholesalers. They come up to me, they say, hey, what's this wholesaling stuff? And da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, I hear I can do this. And I tell them everything I just told you. And then I tell them, and I'll tell you how to do that. All right. I'll give you the leads. I'll give you a list of 50 houses, go knock on their door and say, hey, I want to pay less for your house than it's worth. All right. I will give you the price that it's actually worth. And you can go out there and do the groundwork and try to go get in front of these people's faces and maybe get the house under contract. But do not ever let Ray talk to the person you're trying to hold, your house you're trying to get under contract with. Because Ray is going to tell him what that house is actually worth. And your deal, Mr. or Mrs. Wholesaler, is not going to exist after I talk to that person. And that's just how that game's going to get played. Right. I have made this offer to a whole bunch of people. Nobody has ever took me up on it. Right? Because I give them the same speech about you do not do it this way and this is how this thing works. And, they decide to go pay $500 for a seminar. Well, some guy who's got a lot better hair than me, right? A lot nicer shirt on, and maybe one of those little boom mics, and he's going to sit up there and walk on stage is like, hey, does anybody want to make some money today? Yeah, those people, all right? He was selling Amway 10 years prior. Now he's teaching you how to wholesale houses, all right? So if I personally offended anybody when I just made that statement, go, is he talking about me? Yeah, I probably am. See, I told you this was going to be an editorial. So I tell you that to tell you this. Wholesalers actually do serve a purpose in our ecology, all right? Just like vultures serve a purpose in our ecology, right? Because there honestly are houses out there that are unlivable, all right? And we're talking ugly houses, all right? We're not just talking the house that's outdated. We're not just talking the house that needs new carpet and new paint job. We're not just talking the house that needs work done to it. We're talking seriously, they are no longer economically viable because of space, size, condition. All right. Those houses need to go somewhere. All right. And that is where the flipper comes in. A lot of home buyers that I've encountered want to come in and purchase a house and get some sweat equity. And they might think, oh, I want a house that I can put some sweat equity into. I don't want to pay the house that's all dolled up, ready to go. I want to be able to do that myself. Some people actually have the skill sets that they can do that. Some people actually realize what they're getting into. But when you show them the sweat equity house and they start realizing the real sweat equity house is the kitchen and the bathrooms, not just paint and carpet, then all of a sudden they want to start looking at the houses that have already been done. But a flipper is going to go in there. Let's take, for example, a house I just saw yesterday. The nice looking house, 1,100 square feet, decent location, a location that's going to be really worth something in the next 5-10 years because that neighborhood is blowing up. But the house is very, very close to original in style. It is a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. Modern families do not do 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. A flipper could look at that house and go, we got good bones here to work with, right? We can knock a wall down between the living room and the kitchen and the dining room area, make it a great room, and we can build onto the back of the house. We can add square footage to this. So we just took this house that is no longer truly economically viable and make it something that more people are going to be interested in, more people are going to be, and you're going to have to add probably about, I'd say, at least 1,000 square feet on that thing. Building off the back porch, you're going to have to redo a lot of the electrics, and that's going to take a lot of money, and a flipper can do that. All right. A flipper cannot do that with a house that he just bought at full market value, but he can do it unless they're going really large, all right, like Arcadia. Arcadia is buying $500,000 houses and knocking them down and putting a $2.5 million house in the same footprint. So, some neighborhoods you can do that with. But in many cases, those flippers, what they're doing is they're taking unviable housing and repurposing it and turning it into real housing. Right? Flippers got a bad deal, got a bad rep a couple years ago, because first time people were just watching these flippers take what could have been a starter home for them and suddenly putting it outside their price point, because there was a lot of houses out there that were still economically viable, but because the market was depressed, those houses weren't really being bought. And the wholesalers feed the flippers. The flippers really are they're the first, they're the ones who buy it from the wholesalers. And so those wholesalers do serve that purpose because it allows the flippers to work. But it's where the wholesaler starts ripping off people when it's a house that is economically viable. Right? And I saw a lot of examples of this a couple years ago where I would see a house that flip. I'm showing it to a seller or to a buyer. I see the house and go, okay, I see what they did. This is a flipped house. And I do my research before we put an offer in. And I'd see that the flipper has owned it for less than 90 days, which used to be a problem with FHA loans. And that house got transacted like 2 times, right before the flipper got it. Because when you go to the county recorder and the county assessor sites, you can see the purchase prices that were recorded down. And I used to see these ridiculously low numbers of the person would buy it for a ridiculously low house. And I do a little bit of research and I realized what they were doing. And this is something I want you to tell everybody, all right? That when you get your assessor's letter, and I'm going to do a complete video on how to decipher what the county assessor sends you. I don't know if they purposely make it as opaque and as possible, but they could do that a whole easier way to let people know what their assessment actually is. They use the biggest lie in the world, the biggest lie in government, and that's saying something. They use the term full cash value. And by using the term full cash value, it cements in your head that that's the actual price of your house. Yeah, and there's a reason why you don't want the assessor using full market value for your house over full cash value for your house when they're deciding how much they're going to charge you in taxes. But unscrupulous Sith lords, vultures of real estate would go up to grandma who needs to sell her house, and they call her up on the phone and go, "Hi, can I talk to Miss Crabtree?" "Hi, this is Miss Crabtree." "Miss Crabtree, I'm working with a bunch of investors in your neighborhood, and we were wondering, have you given any consideration to selling your house? Because I have a seller that will give you full cash value for your house." And Miss Crabtree thinks this sounds wonderful. Full cash value, that's great. I don't have to worry about getting ripped off. And they go, "Do me a favor. Do you have your assessor's statement?" And either they save those things and she could pull that out. And he says, "Well, how about if I bring it and show it to you?" And they're going to show you a very formal piece of paper that says Maricopa County Assessors at the top of it that says, "Your house is only worth $134,000. But we will write you a check for $134,000. And Ms. Crabtree sells it for $134,000 when if I had a sign out in front of it, she would have gotten $255. All right. That's a lie by omission. And I think if there's a wholesaler out there who's listening to this and then suddenly realize that's what they've been doing for for the last couple of years of their lives, and they actually have been ripping off little old ladies, God bless you. Get to church and repent of your sins. All right. But the reason why I bring this whole thing up is I got a call yesterday from a person, and I'm doing the little phone call. I actually, if you look on my channel, I do have a video that I did years ago ranting about this. But I was sitting there having the conversation with a person. I always say right up saying, "Hey, yeah, I'm a real estate agent. Every house I have is for sale. Which one are you talking about?" All right. I just disclosed I'm a real estate agent. All right. I got to do that every time I have a conversation with somebody about real estate. Hey, Ray, real estate agent. And they never listen to you. So she started going up. So, well, what kind of offer you think about making? She said, well, what do you think yourself are worth? And I said, I haven't really priced my my place lately. And she goes, well, I got a buyer who'd be willing to give you a full cash value. And she said that thing, and she summoned the thunder down on her. And I had a really great ranting little conversation about how full cash value was not full market value, and wound up hanging up on her. Because that's what I do. I'm really hard on phone solicitors, right? And that's what stimulated the reason why I needed to have this video today. Because I know these guys are still making phone calls. I know these guys can contact a hell of a lot more people a day than I can. If you have family members who own houses, if you ever get those calls yourself, right? Before you decide to sell your house to the person who's calling you up saying, I am working for an investor, I am working with an investor, before you call that sign on the side of the road, no matter how ugly you think your house is, call a real estate agent, not just me, any of them, and say, hey, I'm thinking about selling my house. Can you do a BPO, a broker's price opinion on my house, so you at least in your head know what your house is going to be worth on the market if you go through a traditional sale. After you have that number in your head, then you can call the iBuyers. Then you can call the wholesalers, right? You're at least making an informed decision of what you're going to do. I was saying this years ago that when everybody was upset because Zillow estimates were so far off, I was saying I wish everybody knew their Zillow estimate in the back of their head, because I can sit there and explain to you why that number is wrong, right? But at least they will know the value of something closer to the value of their house than what the wholesaler is going to sell them. So if there's an investor out there who's watching this video and would like to have a conversation about wholesaling and why it's this great and wonderful thing and how you're helping the consumer, here's the gauntlet. You, me, Zoom call. All right, we'll record live and have this conversation, and I will post it immediately after, unedited. You might know something I don't. You might be able to hand me my ass. You might be able to sit there and talk about how this little old lady, how you helped. All right, and you maybe you have, and maybe you get to sleep at night because you think about the little old lady you help. Or let me do another good one. All right, let's talk about the grieving person who is the executor of his mother's estate, who was so torn with grief, you came in and took the biggest issue off of his plate, how to get rid of the house. You helped them move out. You helped them move all of their stuff out, and you probably feel really, really good about that. All right. You also made a profit. Right. I can hear exactly what I just heard it. I heard it out there in the audience. All right. It's like, but Ray, you're a real estate agent. You get paid money to sell. And you're like, yes, I do. All right. And the value that I bring to that transaction is I'm getting you full market value for that house. The value that I'm bringing to that transaction is I'm making sure that my seller is not getting ripped off by anybody in the process. All right. I'm making sure that my seller, when they sell that house and they've agreed to a price with the buyer, and the buyer comes in and suddenly comes in with a shopping list 1.5 miles long on the Binzer of these are all the things we need to get repaired before we can buy this house. So how about we just deduct $30,000 off the price? All right. I'm the one who can come back and say, no, actually, that's not $30,000 worth of price. That's $5,000 worth of cheap repairs, and we'll get right on that, get ready to close. All right. That's what I bring to the table. All right. So anybody wants to call me up, anybody wants to pick up my challenge, have this conversation with me, I would really enjoy having it, because honestly, the lockdown's starting to get to me, and I don't get to talk to enough strangers. All right. Thank you very much, guys. And any questions, complaints, concerns below. Have a great day. And now the numbers for July 7th, 2021. Actives this week were 5,792 actives, which is up 211. I'm now starting to track the new additions to the active list, which we had 2,214 of, which was down 270 from the week before. Our under contract with backups were at 1,026, which is down 226 from the week before. Our pendings dropped to 1,688, which is down 237. And our contracts with buyers contingencies are at 66, which is down 22, which left us with a total closings of 2,192, which was down 190 from the week before. So what we're looking at on this one is that we see the impact of the holiday weekend, where people were still putting properties on the market, but not at the rate that they were before. And we see that buyers were not showing up and writing offers, and we see that in all three categories. And of course, we have the closings down 190 from because this week is not going to reflect anything that happened at the end of the month. So, as you can see, I get a little salty in that video. And when it comes to our numbers, it looked like a lot of people decided to take the weekend off. Our active listings were lower than before. Less people were putting new properties on. I'm really going to start tracking those the new listings and whatnot, because I think that's we're hitting that point. That's also a really big factor you need to start looking at, so you can see whether or not we're going to start returning to some semblance of normalcy right now. Especially when it comes along the lines of we are going into summer. Summer is traditionally a dwell period when it comes to real estate. So getting back on the wholesaling thing real quick. Arizona Department of Real Estate put out the bulletin today, which is where I got the article on Oklahoma. They also had a second part in there where they had 10 questions answered by an attorney for real estate agents. All right, and a couple things I really wanted to point out here is you can assign a contract in the state of Arizona without having or assignees written on the buyer's part of the contract. All contracts are pretty much considered assignable unless specifically stated otherwise. They state that if you are a real estate agent and you start getting a wholesaler who's wanting you to write their offers for them, talk to your broker. If you're not sure whether or not you should talk to your broker, talk to your broker. And if you think you know everything about the universe, talk to your broker. All right, because ultimately you're working for them. Just like I'm working for Steve. It's Steve's house. It's Steve's show. Steve tells me I'm not doing something. I'm not doing it, even if I think it's really, really cool. But, and same for you. Talk to your broker on these things. And just as an aside to certain brokerages out there, and I would name them out loud, but hey, don't want to catch an Article 15, but I've had this issue with their agents before. If you are working for a brokerage that you can't just pick up the phone, speed dial broker, and have them pick up the phone, you might want to start shopping around, because that's what you're paying them the big bucks for, right? To be available to you and to keep your ass out of trouble. So, sorry, editorial aside, rewatching that video got me all fired up again. Other thing in that is really calling out is that if you have a seller who receives a purchase offer from a wholesaler, how do you convey this information to them? And the first things first, you're not an attorney, you're just a real estate agent. Just because I'm not an attorney, I'm just a real estate agent, all right? And we're not allowed from offering legal advice, right? But there are two things we can tell our sellers when we get that offer come across from a wholesaler, all right? And the first one is agents should explain to the seller that if the wholesaler is able to assign the contractual rights, they're going to do it as a profit. They're there to make money. They think that that they're buying your house at a price that they can turn around and resell. And the second thing that you are allowed to tell your seller is that there is a risk they might not be able to close escrow if they can't find a downstream buyer. All right, and you need to take that into consideration, all right, whether or not you want to gamble that these guys through their network are going to be able to find a downstream buyer that putting it on the MLS didn't already find. So remember that. You might like the number, But all right. And the other thing to really call out on this thing is that if you are a real estate agent, and if you as a real estate agent are making offers using the AAR form, you're supposed to put in there somewhere to protect you and to signal the seller that this is a wholesaler purchasing the property. In fact, the wholesaler themselves has an obligation, because this is something that a seller would take into consideration, to inform the buyer, hey, I'm wholesaling this and I'm planning on it. And I think if the Department of Real Estate really wanted to start going after wholesalers, that's probably the weak link, the Achilles heel. That is probably the main thing wholesalers out there can get, because they're going to say, hey, yeah, I'm working with a buyer and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And they're going to represent themselves, never come straight out and say that they're a licensed sales agent, but they represent themselves. I know this because I've had the conversation with them, and I actually have to nail them down to the point where they admit, no, I am not licensed, but the person I'm working for is. And when I ask the next question, well, who they brokeraged through, click. All right. But hey, just understand that. The wholesaler is supposed to tell you whether or not they're a wholesaler, but most of them don't. They're just going to say they're partnered with somebody else, and that their partnership just goes as far as, yeah, they're on my email list when I send out the properties that I got under contract this week. So understand that. Wholesalers are also liable for, fulfilling the contract. So I don't know if I recovered everything in the original video, but if you are under contract with somebody or thinking about accepting a contract with somebody, know what that sign means. This is an asterisk. Ray is not an attorney. The few things that you can actually see where you're going to see that they are potentially a wholesaler on your property is they are going to be stating or assignees in the contract. A lot of them don't even use an Arizona real estate contract. They'll get this weird, I got a whole collection of these weird little contracts I've seen out there, and that will generally have in there our assignee. So if you just randomly get this contract from somebody, look at it. If it's an AAR contract, it's going to say this is an Arizona Association of Realtors contract. The other thing is that you're going to see this really abnormal inspection period. All right, and it's going to be 5, not just like the 5 or regular 10 days. And 10 days is pretty standard. It's boilerplate in the contract. But you're going to be seeing these things like 30-day inspection period. And then next thing you know, these inspectors, people who are inspecting your property, are showing up bringing their kids along. And they don't really sit there and tell you what I'm here to inspect the plumbing. I'm here to inspect the house. No, their buyers are coming through your house, and that's the people desperately trying to get rid of your place. Because they just got it under contract. So these are the things to watch out for in that, and we can go into greater detail later on. My voice is starting to go out on me on this, so I'm going to start wrapping it up. Once again, thank you very much for watching the show, and next week we'll have something completely different. Thank you much, guys. Have a great day.